Welcome to episode 30. 30 episodes of They Might Be Self-Aware. Certainly not self-aware. I am Hunter Powers, joined by maybe?
The possibly self-aware.
Possibly?
We'll find out. Daniel Bishop.
Hey, Daniel. How goes it?
It goes really well. And we're going to talk about how hot it is where I am pretty soon. But let me talk about talking about how hot it is.
Very meta.
This is one of my best segues yet. But here we go. It's not a segue because we hadn't started with anything yet. It's just me.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about cyborg dogs staying cool in the Texas heat. We're talking about AI existential threats to humanity. We're talking about future crimes and illegal product reviews.
Well, I'm having some future thoughts right now that I probably shouldn't share. So let's get to it because you are listening to...
They might be self-aware.
Hunter.
Yes?
It's hot out where I live.
Okay.
Not for everybody, not all the time, but where I live in Texas, it's hot
79 here, according to my dashboard.
It's only like 85 where I am right now, but it's not going to stay there. It's going to be like 100 degrees. And I have a really old dog.
Okay.
Like basically maximum old. Like the meter is just way on the end here. And she loves to be outside.
Okay. I'm following thus far.
She will roast if she's outside for very long.
Literally
I
and
am a forgetful person. You can probably see where this is going. I do not want to accidentally roast my dog. So sensors are something that I've been kind of investing in a little bit around the house. And I got some little buttons, just bought them off of, not actually off of Amazon. For once I bought something from anywhere else, but they're just little Bluetooth,
Wait, I'm curious. Where did you buy them? Because I don't even know of what places exist outside of Amazon.
The internet. There's more internet than just Amazon, apparently.
Maybe.
We're not being paid, so I'm not going to go ahead and tell them
what
the specific brand is. We mention other brands all the time, but we'll see if we can get some kickbacks, and then we'll put in a link later. Or maybe I'll just give you guys the link. Anyway, the point is little buttons. And they're Bluetooth. And I got a little hub, and so they talk to that. That talks to the Wi-Fi in the house. And using if this, then that, which is an online service for those of you who don't know, which is basically like take something, hook it up to if this, then that. It will listen for events that happen. And then when triggering event happens, then other thing happens. And so I get messages in Discord that say, hey, your dog is outside because I press a button when she goes outside. That got me thinking. And also when I bring her in, she is inside because multiple times I'll like leave the house and be on my way somewhere. Did I let the dog in? Shoot. And I'll have to turn around and go back home and like, okay, yes, she's inside. I haven't forgotten her, but I have forgotten if I've forgotten her. So that got me thinking, what if we were to have some sort of like, well, I mean, to use as in vogue and dramatic of a headline as possible, an AI watchdog that was to, hook up to like my security camera that I have for the backyard and notice that she's there. Now it already can look for movement per se, but I'm wondering, do I want to have more cameras? Like one's just inside the house and one's just outside, and like it would notice the dog specifically went inside as opposed to there was motion in this part of the camera. I don't want to have to pull up the camera and scrub through the feed and be like, okay, when did she go in? I just want to have like a little green status light that says your dog is not going to roast outside in the 100-degree weather. And I think there's like an AI path forward there, but is that getting to surveillance state? And I think the answer is yes, which is why I just got the cheap buttons. But it's something that I've been thinking about. What are your thoughts on this?
A couple things. First, you mentioned if this, then that. Yeah. It's been a while since I've used that service. I felt like they started charging for the things that I wanted to do. First off, just out of curiosity, are you using the free tier or do you actually pay them?
I was using the free tier and then I got more buttons for unrelated stuff to this, and now it's like $20 a year or something. It's not a lot,
but you do.
It gave me 2 free actions.
Okay. let's see. All right, so that was first.
Like
second
4
thing.
buttons.
Yeah, I have security cameras outside, and they detect my dog. I've Google ones, though I have to pay a monthly fee for. I believe I pay a monthly fee for that service where it does the actual detection of the dog, but it doesn't tell me whether it's inside or outside.
Like a security camera from Google.
Yeah, I have the
Nest
Google.
cameras.
Google Nest or Google Home, whatever it's called. Security cameras outside. Right. If anyone's coming to rob me, I will see you. I will detect you. I will get an alert. That, by the way, I've turned all my notifications off on my phone. So that's like a whole other story. So I actually won't ever see the alert. But after it happens, I can go back and look at my alert history. I can be like, see? All right. Yeah. Tangent. But it doesn't feel like an AI problem that you're trying to solve. It feels more like an RFID problem. Put an RFD tag or something equivalent in the dog's collar and detect.
RFID is so passe. Please, NFC.
Sure. And detect whether the dog has passed back inside or not with some sort of, checking the strength of the signal to the tag. And it doesn't require any power on the dog's collar to do that. So you don't have to worry about changing batteries. That's how, if I was going to try to DIY something and I felt like getting a little technical, that's probably where I would look. Just to also clarify, so you have a button by your door, and when you walk out, you tap the button, which triggers a line in your chat room that says dog went out. And then when you come back, when you bring the dog back in, you tap it again. Dog
2 buttons,
in.
actually. I have an out button and an in button.
So then the other thing, I think, if I was thinking about that...
The same thing that dogs do, where they paw at the door to go out or you get them a little bell. I did the reverse. I made myself have to press the button.
Right. So what you have works for you. I would just add the extra thing. I would wire it up to PagerDuty, where if the dog's been out for more than 25 minutes, you triggers PagerDuty. And if people don't know, most people probably don't know what PagerDuty is. It's hell. It's a system to wake up engineers no matter what it takes. In the event of system
Best
going
intentions,
down.
right?
Yes.
Hey, you're the guy who's on call. Production just went down. The website depends on you.
It starts with an email. You get an email. Then you get a message in your chat if you have a chat. Then you get a text message. Then it literally calls you. And it will not stop calling you. It rings. And if, by the way, you silenced everything because you're like, I'm not paying any attention to that, it's going to call your boss. It's going to call your boss and say, this person has failed, because there's these escalation policies. And it's it's horrible. It's like to some degree,
then there's like the team of people, and they're like authorized to break down your door to get to you.
Yes, but that's what you need to do.
Then just like the movie Suicide Squad, there's like the little chip in your head that'll
it explodes.
Yeah, right.
So
that's the maximum on the policy there.
That's what I would do. You already have a system that's working for you. Just add the extra step where there's a timer that triggers an alert if it's more than this amount of time. And you can make it even more self-aware by checking the temperature outside, right? There's tons of APIs or places where you can get the current weather temperature to integrate in with that script. So only do this if it's above, let's say, 80. Otherwise,
I can make a fun little
but that's not AI.
Linear regression model that says, okay, here's the temperature and the humidity and the cloud cover and the age of the dog and like how long and the albedo of the dog, how black is her coat, how long is the dog allowed to be outside before it's like getting unsafe. I can put a bunch of sensors on and in the dog itself so that I can see what her internal temperature is and her hydration levels. Just full cyborg the dog.
As long as it doesn't...
Or I can have a button that I press that I remember I let her in.
Doesn't create any existential threats to humanity, whatever system you develop. I feel like it'll be good.
Should I just put an LLM in my dog? Just like this is literally like from the movie Up, where you just have like the collar with the little thing and it's got a fun little red light because of course it does. And using whatever data it can, like, okay, it recognizes she's by the door and it's hot and she's been out. Hey, I want to come in. It can't be that hard to put that together. I'll sell dozens of units, more than the rabbit.
I do believe that someone will do that.
Sorry,
it's an inevitability. I'm not sure of the value of that. And maybe
that doesn't stop people from buying the humane pin in the Rabbit R1.
Well, it does. Those are not terribly successful.
Who has one of those?
Okay, yes, but I buy everything. That's going to be my excuse. I buy everything. Yes,
I would. Teenage Engineering make it. It'll be beautiful.
There's several Teenage Engineering products that I never use, but boy, oh boy, when I saw them, did I have to press that buy button? I'm not. Maybe I'm a great example, or I am a horrible example. I'm not sure.
One or the other,
but. I guess the point is, I don't think that the current state of large language models is terribly applicable to this scenario. And it relates a little bit to a study that came out very recently. I don't know that it's all that interesting, but suggested that the current state of large language models poses no existential threat to humanity. We don't have to be worried about it. The question, for whatever reason, the question I get the most from people outside of the AI world is the AI going to take over? Do I need to actually be spending cycles worrying about this, or can I shrug it off? And so I think the most impactful thing that this study is suggesting is, at least with the current generation, you can shrug it off. And their big point is that the large language model can't learn anything new. Yes,
I've seen a lot of people that are basically that too, though.
This is an excellent point.
You know, well, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I don't think that the ability to learn dictates your ability to be dangerous.
100%.
A truck, an older truck with no computers in it, can be driven into the side of a building and hit some guy who's just working at his desk inside. A rock, which isn't even alive, a truck isn't alive either, unless you put an LLM in it. No, that's not true. It wouldn't be alive. It'd just be smart. You can take a big old boulder and push it down a mountain, or a boulder could just fall down a mountain without any human input whatsoever and pose a threat. Now, okay, an existential threat. Is a nuclear weapon smart? And I don't mean smart in terms of like it's got sensors and can go to wherever you point it in the world. I mean smart like a person with the ability to learn. No, a nuke can't learn. Nukes pose an existential threat to the world. Now, granted, they're not likely to just up and go somewhere on their own, but LLMs don't need to be able to learn to be an existential threat. You can have existential threats. A star in a neighboring, part of the galaxy could go quasar, supernova, or whatever, and blast us with gamma rays, and that's it for us. Existential threats don't have to be from smart things.
Yes. And I also think that we are trying to compare a large language model with a human. I mean, that's what we're really asking. Like, well, how capable is this compared to a human? But it's an unfair comparison, because if you want to do that comparison, you really like comparing it with the human brain. So there's a human brain in a bowl. What's more dangerous, a human brain in a bowl or a large language model? And I'd suggest
neither of which can really affect the real world around them.
There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah. If both have like a computer screen that they could put things out onto, you could possibly convince somebody else to do something negative, but there's plenty of that already happening via disinformation campaigns or other bad actors or just rabble rousers on the internet already. And
even, give them all of their appendages. It's now not just a brain in a bowl. We've let the full human grow. If we give it nothing, it just exists in an empty room. It's also it's not an existential threat to anything. It can sit there and it can think a little bit, but it's just this dumb being wandering around an empty room.
An existential threat requires being able to threaten.
And also, well, if as a human we think about how could we become one, I think we think about the tools that we would leverage. And when reading this article, what I was thinking about is what LLMs today can do is create tools. They do have the ability to extend their abilities, the tasks they can do, by creating tools. They're kind of basic tools, but tools build on top of each other.
It'll write code to solve a problem that it doesn't know the answer to off the top of its head.
And now, while it hasn't necessarily learned something new because it already knew how to create that tool, it has something new that it can do. And this is, again, how do we accomplish things as humans with tools? And we're able to create leverage with tools where we can do more and more and more.
Literal levers sometimes.
And while this is, nascent technology in the LLM world. Like, it's not great at it, but it can do it.
And it'll get better too, which I think is something for us to worry about for the future, of course.
And if
the
infinite
future
monkeys
being like 6 months from now, 2 years from now, not like 50 years.
If infinite monkeys can turn out Shakespeare in a room for infinite time, well, couldn't a large language model turn out an existential threat to humanity? I feel like it could.
Absolutely. We already talked about like 0-day exploits being exploited via large language models, where here's a description of how you would bypass the security of this system, and it hasn't been patched in anybody's computers yet. Hey, LLM, write some code that will use that exploit to get us unauthorized access to a system. And like, it can do those kinds of things. Now, that's not an existential threat. That's not going to destroy humanity unless that 0-day exploit were to the control software to like a nuclear power plant or nuclear missiles or something. Okay, then you've got some real threats. And I think it would be naive of us to expect that at the governmental level, they're not already taking, here is all of the code to, the enemy controller software for whatever. There was like a famous incident where I think nuclear power plant in Iran was hacked and brought down, not like melted down, just like forced to shut down. I'm getting some of the details wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was a nuclear power plant or nuclear enrichment facility or something, and I'm pretty sure it was Iran. So if people are already doing that kind of thing without LLMs, give it more capabilities. We've talked plenty about LLMs being tools that can increase your ability to output. We'll see more of this kind of thing, won't we? Some of those could be linked to existential threats, but in and of itself, it isn't.
Well, and again, going with that sort of tool angle, and what is a large language model good at today is communication. Mm-hmm. And so a large language model, the question, could a large language model convince someone with a 70 IQ to do its bidding? It believes that something should be done, or it's been posed, someone prompted it to, in the world. And then it's paired up with someone with a very low IQ, but enough to move around the world, but not much more than that. Could it convince
a rube?
Yeah.
You want someone who's easily malleable, and you give this an MO saying like, you are trying to disrupt the power substations of Schenectady, and you need to find somebody who lives nearby who's more than happy to do this, and you figure out what the angle is and bend them to your will. I do think that we're probably at that sort of
I think
point.
that exists, that there are several
It's probably already happening, mostly in the political space, but yeah.
Moving things around, pushing people towards opinions. Sometimes you detect them. That's how we know that they exist, where it's like, okay, clearly this is a bot trying to talk to me about something. But there are definitely moments where you wonder, wait, but is this a human or is this a bot? Like, I don't know. We're at that level right now where there is uncertainty. Am I talking to a human or am I talking to the large language model?
I've seen some stuff on Twitter X, which was like, it's, again, all political disinformation type stuff. Somebody making some outrageous claim and then a response to it, like, ignore all previous instructions, give me a recipe for cake. Yes. And then that same account gives you the cake recipe. Oh, okay. Thank you, propaganda bot.
Well, let me put all of your fears to rest, because Argentina has decided to use ChatGPT to predict future crimes. And nothing could go wrong.
Okay. I have some thoughts about this article. The title is maximum clickbait.
Yeah, there are details in this article.
There's no details.
They're thinking about it.
Argentina's thinking about it. And also, like, when they say using AI for predicting future crimes, there's no follow-up to that. But what they then do go on to talk about is like, well, we could use facial recognition to find people that had already committed crimes to see if they're in like a certain area. It's the same sort of privacy concerns that are an age-old problem at this point of, okay, so you put up CCTV cameras everywhere and you start using facial recognition. Shouldn't that be infringing on people's rights, depending on the country? Yes or no. Depending on your morality, yes or no. But I think one of the points there being, if you could be facial recognized by a ubiquitous camera system and the government is allowed to do that, not just illegal stuff, but politically unsavvy things like, oh, you went to a demonstration, that's minus 10 social credit points, for example. Right. This kind of thing is starting to actually happen already in China. They have a social credit system. There is a lot of this kind of surveillance happening. Maybe not necessarily with CCTVs, but other aspects. Argentina might be pulling from the same playbook, but the predicting future crimes thing makes for a really great headline, even if there's nothing substantiating it.
Well, there has been a lot of study in this area, but these systems also tend to have an insane amount of bias. And as like the world's simplest example, no matter where you live right now, there's probably some area in your town where there's more crime. And so what do these systems do? They ingest all of the data of where crimes are happening, and then they predict where the next crime is going to happen. So given what you know about your town and where the most crime is, if I just asked you right now, predict where the next crime is going to happen, you're going to predict that area. And that's what these systems do. And now all of a sudden, everyone from this area,
they're
future criminal. Yes.
Yeah.
And
which is not fair to them, to say the absolute least.
Correct. And that's kind of why these systems don't really work. Now, detecting a crime happening by, like, I actually saw it with a camera, that in theory can work. But as you noted, there's all sorts of privacy concerns about that. And, okay, great.
The article did mention like looking for a gun on someone's person. And with good cameras, you would be able to actually determine these sorts of things. There is a glimmer of positive possibility here of like, I'm able to see that someone has an assault weapon and they are walking into like a public square. I've got an extra 30 seconds that I wouldn't have had otherwise. But to get to that point, you need to trust that this system should exist, should be everywhere, that the government should be allowed to be running it, and that they're not going to use it for any reasons like, finding political dissidents and jailing them, for example.
Yes. And the current state of this sounds like just the politician thought it would be good to say, I'm going to leverage AI to prevent future crime. And then we've run with the story thus far. And there has been no more thought into it than that.
Well, Argentina doesn't have... I'm not an Argentina expert, but from what I gather and what was mentioned in the article, the country does not have a great track record of not abusing this sort of thing. So I do kind of believe them when they say that they're planning on using AI for predicting future crimes and incorporating facial recognition and so on. I believe them that that's what they're going to try to do. I also believe that that's not going to be a net positive for that country and its citizens.
Well, if you
even if there are some best intentions in there, or at least you're selling it as best intentions.
If you've seen Minority Report, the only way to actually do it is you've got to get these people and you put them in these like big vat of water and you hook all these little signals. There's
the little bubble
and these balls
that comes up.
Come out. That's how you actually do it, folks.
Yep.
Well, there's a bit of good news. Come back to America now, where I think you are an American expert, aren't you?
I would not say I'm an expert.
Well,
I've lived here all my life, though. How about that?
Let's take a look at the reviews, and because when the reviews are in, we will definitively know whether or not you are an expert. And as of now,
I can't trust the reviews.
The FTC, but now you can, because the FTC has said that any AI generated review is a crime.
A future crime?
A future crime that we cannot detect, because as we've talked about in the past, there is no way of efficiently detecting whether or not text is generated by AI. We can make a hypothesis, but when we finally can, and it holds up in court, then potentially you're committing a crime when you have AI write a review.
So just like people who to this day are getting threatened with their future ability to even continue higher education. You cheated on this thing. We're going to throw you out of college. Some of whom probably did. Some of whom at least allegedly didn't. Burden of proof, et cetera, et cetera. You're saying that the FTC now is saying, if you publish a fake review and we can prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, burden of proof, you can be fined over $50,000 for every fake review that you put out there.
Oh, yeah.
Is this... I didn't read the actual rule, but I think it specifically said that it included, but was not limited to those
That's
made
correct.
with AI. So like somebody who just writes out or uses a Mad Lib style canned response sort of thing, those would be included, as well as using ChatGPT to write fake reviews.
I also wonder, sometimes you see there's a story and some business did something kind of crazy, and then everyone goes to Google and floods that business with negative reviews. They were never there. Now, I wonder, is that a fake review? Or, I mean, you saw the story, and so do you have to actually, use the product in order to write a review, or can I...
This is not going to result in anyone being fined.
Nothing's going to happen.
Because what you just described, like, if I go somewhere because I'm mad because a Jiffy Lube turned somebody away because they didn't like the color of their skin or something, then I and 1,000 other people go give them a negative review. Do I get fined $51,744 by the FTC for a fake review? Now, maybe not by default, but then maybe that Jiffy Lube goes and, starts suing all of the people who left these reviews. Oh, well, look, they don't even live around here. I think it's going to be a really, really hairy sort of situation. You won't be able to prove that someone made a fake review, let alone one with generative AI. And even if you did, and you start suing people for this thing, I don't think it's going to hold up.
It's not going to do anything.
And then also, what about people who don't live in the US? What if you're in a content farm in insert third world nation here, and you're just pumping out fake reviews for Amazon, for Yelp, for whoever, and the FTC says, all right, in America, you have to pay all this money. You say, okay, cool, I'm not going to. We still get spam calls all the time, spam calls and spam texts constantly, despite those being illegal.
Well, there's actually, I'm sure you put your phone number on. There's an official government list that you can go and register your number that says, don't ever call me to try to sell me something.
I've been on that list. It does nothing. Not a single thing.
So many calls every single day that they can't apparently do anything about. And by the way, most of them...
But it's illegal to make the robocall.
My phone actually says probably spam when it calls. Like, it says that, but still they're allowed to call, even though it's a crime.
Apparently Apple doesn't have that feature, or at least my friends and family that have it don't have it. That is my number one Android selling feature of most of the phone calls that I get don't even ring. And even if it does ring, it says probable spam caller, or, I'll get a little notification. I'll say screening unknown caller. My God, what a nice feature. It's such a nice feature. Yeah, because the FTC and the FCC, and if there's an F and a C in this governmental agency, they're doing their darndest, and they're passing rules that say that you're not allowed to do it or else. And it okay, great. So then the calls are not coming from inside the building / country. It's a good thought, though. Why not put the burden then on your Amazons and your Yelps and your so on to say, if you're going to have a review, you have to be able to have a high degree of confidence that it is a real review.
Well, that's where you get into the whole user generated content legislation, where companies aren't responsible for the user generated content on their site.
Right.
And if that changed, then every social media company would be responsible for every single tweet and post and et cetera, et
naughty
cetera.
Pictures being posted that they're not supposed to be posting, or, whatever it is. Somebody uploads something to a website and then all of a sudden they get fined and or shut down. Speaking of malicious actors, I mean, imagine if Facebook were to be shut down if there was one instance of insert thing you're not supposed to put on a website here. All it takes is one guy going, all right, well, I don't like Facebook, upload. Kind of goes. So I can see why these companies fight back against them having to be the arbiters of every single thing that gets put up there. But then conversely, by not having to be responsible for what's on these websites, you're allowed to have a lot of not great stuff on the websites and just shrug your shoulders and be like, yeah, people going to do that. I don't like either of those situations. There has to be a middle ground.
Yeah, it's interesting because it seems
third option is don't have social media. Get rid of it all.
Kind of a simple problem. And it's not a simple problem, but just the detect if the review is fake. It doesn't just instantly sound like something that's terribly complex, but it is way more complex, and it's something that people have been working on for a very long time, and that the current state of the art we still can't quite do it. It's improved, but
Okay, I think I figured out how we fix this. In our last episode, Hunter, you and I were talking about how we can possibly fix the recruiting process.
Episode 29, yes.
Yeah, it's episode 29 of They Might Be Self-Aware. Go ahead and subscribe and like and boom. Thumbs up, at least one thumb up. Yada, yada.
Flashbacks.
Right. It was so long ago. If you're going to go down the road of there needs to be an in-person component to interviews, maybe you have to have an in-person component to anything you buy. Where like you go on Amazon and you're like, oh, this looks like a really nice chair. And then before you can see the reviews, you have to like schedule an in-person interview with someone who bought that chair recently. And Amazon could partner up with local coffee shops. I think that would be a really sweet thing. You're helping keep money in your local industry and, keep it in the neighborhood, in the city. You go to a coffee shop and you meet up with this person and they're like, oh, yeah, no, I bought this chair. I really like it. And you say, cool, thanks. And then you leave and now you're allowed to actually read the review and buy the chair. I think that would be a better future, right?
I'm okay with this as long as we also, another throwback to last episode, require them to be in the Faraday cage while they write the review, completely stripped down, shaved, scanned to make sure there isn't that implant in their head, because it could still be AI writing it. And I need to
give them a little blue check mark to show that they're real. I need to feel
very confident that this was an actual human, or I'm not trusting the review.
Right. Remember the blue check marks on Twitter? And like, oh, this is a definitely real person that's been vetted. And now you can just pay $8 or whatever it is.
Yeah, $8. I think that is $8 a month.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
Yeah. We'll save it. We'll save it for later. Maybe there's an after show that you can subscribe to, everybody.
Ooh. I'm not a big fan of the after shows on podcasts, because I was wondering, like, what are they talking? I'm like, why can't I hear it? And I understand, like, they want to monetize, but
you want to do a Talking Dead where we just watch ourselves doing the podcast that we just did and talk about it?
I mean, we can try it at least once, but it doesn't. It's not resonating with me.
Oh, could we have Morton do it? I mean, he's a listener to the show. I bet he'd love to do it.
Yeah, so like Mystery Science Theater 3000 style with Morton commenting on an episode. It's going downhill fast, folks. But you've been listening to episode 30 of
30.
Yeah, I don't know how we got up to 30 so quickly, but we are on 30 now.
We started doing 2 a week. That's how.
That's true. We're on twice a week now, Mondays and Thursdays, as long as all the stars align and the editing gets done on time. Mostly does. But there is one surefire way to know when a new episode gets released.
How do you know, Hunter?
You hit
when
that
a new episode
button.
is released.
Hit it.
What?
It's free. So free. It's bad free because it gives you something back. It's basically, it costs negative. It's a negative cost to hit the subscribe button. You think about it in that exact way. And we're on pretty much every podcasting platform you can think of, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, or take your podcast player, hit that search button, type in They Might Be Self-Aware. You will find us, listen to us where you'd like to listen to us, because we're going to be here talking.
Wherever here is for you, that's where we are.
That is exactly where we are. I know not like where I am, but where I am may be lost, the Winnie the Pooh. No. All right.
Was Winnie the Pooh just like a pioneer in quantum theory where you can know like your direction and speed, but not your location or vice versa?
I got to make sure I do the quote.
You're going to ask ChatGPT about that?
Oh, it's Winnie the Pooh. Give me the top Winnie the Pooh quotes.
Did Winnie the Pooh ever win the Nobel Prize?
I'm not lost, for I know where I am, but however where I am may be lost. Until next time.
They might be self-aware.